What's up everyone, King Krabs back again today with another Monotype video, and today I'm playing some Mono Ground. But for the team preview, I'm actually joined by my friend Danny, if you'd like to say hello.
Hey guys, the Australian trainer here, a good friend of King Krabs. I'm visiting his channel this time because ground is the type I use the most, so I would like to talk a bit about it with my good friend Alex.
Cool. So a bit of backstory, I suppose. Me and Danny have been playing Monotypes for years, I think, as far back as Generation 6. We've been playing together in leagues. And he's always been a great ground trainer, and my ground team had to change a lot since the ban of Landorus and Carnot and Smoothrock, so I asked Danny to help me build a team, and we kind of collabed. I took some of my old ideas, some of his ideas, and I created this team. And I'm recording this team preview actually after the games. I'm going to tell you, there's some really, really good games in this episode. Like, this team is strong. So I suppose a bit about ground type. It's a very kind of bulky offensive type. It doesn't have a huge amount of team support with regards to like healing, wishing. It can't aromatherapy, all that kind of stuff. But its Sandstorm really is such a glue to the team, and Danny has a great point to make on that.
The thing is, if you have ground and you don't use sand, you basically have a team of individuals who all do their own kind of thing, and that hardly gives you the win. If you really work with sand, you have a team that works together nicely, like Hippowdon and Escadrille that work together really perfectly. And if you want Garchomp with Sandfield, that fits into that as well. That gives you really a ground team, basically, a team that works together closely, and that can often give you the win.
So yeah, that's a great point. Thank you, Danny. And with that, we're going to jump into the team and explain why the sand is so good. So first off, we have Excadrill, and there's not a whole lot to say here on Excadrill. It's our Sand Rush user. It's really fast. Hits over, I think it's 550 speed, if I'm not mistaken, in the sand, which is just really good. Yeah. That's going to outspeed most Choice Scarfers. Maybe not like Spectrier and stuff, but other than that, it's going to outspeed almost every Choice Scarfer in the tier. As well as that, at Adamant, it's just so strong. Like, over 600 attack is just so strong. Because it has really nice stab in Earthquake and Iron Head. They're generally quite strong. Iron Head can flinch. We have Rock Slide for those flying types in the tier, but we also have Gravity on Landorus, which we'll see in a minute. And finally, I have Rapid Spin. I don't click Rapid Spin much. It's only really a last-ditch effort if I really, really have to get rid of, like, maybe Spikes or a Sticky Web or something.
Exactly, Sticky Web is really important to get rid of quickly. If you face off against bugs who usually use Sticky Web, you need to get it gone. For Corona at +1 speed, will not be outspeeding Excadrill in sand unless the Sticky Web is up. If you face off Corona with Giga Drain and Fiery Dance, you're just gonna lose to it, as this ground team anyway is. So you need to get rid of Sticky Web right away when you face those kind of teams. So it's really important to be dealing with that quickly.
Yeah. Great point, absolutely great point. So I can't remember if I fight any bugs, but that's something to bear in mind if you are going to use this team, which of course, as always, I'll link down below and feel free to use it. So next up we have Landorus, and I absolutely love this Landorus. I'm not sure exactly the IV spread you use, Danny, but you suggested I use Gravity, which I used a lot back in Generation 7, but I haven't used much this generation, and it's just so good. Gravity on a ground team in general is amazing, because it stops things like Celesteela walling you, it stops any flying types, levitators like Rotom. It just doesn't care anymore. It's just like, I don't care, I'm still going to Earthquake you and probably pick up in the KO.
Yeah, indeed. I just checked it. I have max attack, max speed with a speed boosting nature, so that's really going on the speed and attacking side to really make sure those hits really KO. What's really nice about this, if you have the electric types of Zapdos and Rotom Wash, you can really block your Excadrill. To use Gravity is often just a forfeit already, because people just know we're not going to beat this team. Same goes for Poison with Crobat and Galarian Weezing now is a new threat. Just Gravity, and most of the time they just forfeit. Which is not really nice because you want those 6 KOs, of course, but it does give you the points, so why not?
That's very true. So my logic for actually going max HP, max attack, well, obviously I wanted something to hit really hard besides Excadrill, and Adamant Landorus is just so strong. But as well as that, I wanted a kind of a slower, bulkier pivot with U-turns, so I want to come in and intimidate a kind of faster Pokemon, and then get a slow U-turn off into maybe something like Garchomp, or if my Sand is up, for example, Excadrill, which kind of pairs nicely with Gravity in my opinion, so I can Gravity and then get my slow U-turn off, and it's generally bulky enough, thanks to a lot of HP. It has leftovers for passive recovery, and allows me to swap into another Pokemon on my team. And finally, we have Knockoff, which is just generally very good support. Knocking off items, especially Eviolite, is very good. I'm not sure if you were Knockoff. I think you might have it in your Seismitoad, Danny.
have it now. I had Stone Edge for things like Moltres, Charizard, but that was back in Gen 7. When Mega Charizard Y was a huge threat. That's gone now. So I switched Stone Edge for knockoff just for those Eviolite that's used like type Null. I faced one today. I don't beat those kinds of Pokemon without knockoff. You can see the same thing, by the way. That's just too bulky to beat.
Yeah.
Knockoff is really helping out there. Yeah.
Definitely, great point. So next up we have Garchomp, and I just want to say the introduction of Scale Shot made Garchomp so good. I absolutely love it. Garchomp, I suppose, for me anyway, is my speediest Pokemon on the team outside of Excadrill and the Sand, so 333 speed is pretty good. That's unboosted, and Scale Shot can boost that, and then our attack in general is quite strong at 359. So moveset wise, I run Swords Dance because the team actually doesn't have setup outside of this. I don't want to just rely on, just being strong with like adamant attacks, because sometimes you just need that Swords Dance to break through walls, which is why Garchomp comes in handy. Then we have Scale Shot for gaining speed, as well as that. It can just hit multiple times to break through subs, sashes, sturdies, all this great stuff. Earthquake, no need to explain that, it's just a very good stab. And finally Stone Edge for the flying types, because if we don't have gravity up, this thing can be walled out kind of badly by a lot of like flying types like Celesteela, Skarmory, or any of the flying fairies. I don't know if there are any flying fairies that are using the tier. Togekiss is kind of, Togekiss is kind of used.
I would not recommend using Garchomp against the Togekiss. I would
Exactly.
just not do that.
Exactly. But I mean, just in case it's the last Pokemon, I don't want to have like absolutely nothing to deal with something like that. I know, Danny, you use Fire Fang, so if you want to explain why your logic for Fire Fang.
Well, Fire Fang is nice for things like Felthorn, for Scissor. I had Flamethrower on Nidoking, but I needed Earth Power just because that was just a bit nicer to have, especially if Nidoking is the last one standing. Kind of need the double stab in Earth Power and Sludge Wave to really survive. That's why I put Fire Fang on my Garchomp, just to deal with those Felthorn, Scissors, all those kind of pesky Pokemon that can really take you down if you don't have anything for it. Felthorn can really wall a ground team pretty nicely despite the Steel type. If a Swordsman's up, Fire Fang will actually KO a Celesteela, so that's pretty nice. And then you don't have to rely on Gravity, which is situational at times. And just a plus to a Garchomp with Fire Fang, KOing it is just really nice.
Yeah, so there's definitely merit for Fire Fang too, so obviously don't just take my team as the perfect example. Danny has some fantastic stuff on his ground team. It's just we kind of worked together to make things, and I made adjustments to things that suited my matchups, but that's not to say my team is any better. And finally, leftovers are our item. Danny uses Lumberry, which makes sense too, because burning or toxic or even paralysis in the likes of glare or like body slam, which Jirachi actually body slam paralyzed me during this live. Lumberry is so important because that's pretty much the only real weakness Garchomp has is status effects.
Yeah, it really gives you the possibility to set up in the front of those Rotom washes and those Rotom heat. What is it? Rotom oven. I can't remember the name right now.
It's Rotom Heat.
It really gives you this great. You really can set up and face with those and just sweep them afterwards. That gives you a lot of more possibilities to sweep with your Garchomp if you are at that point in the game where you can.
And finally, ability-wise, I run Rough Skin. I tried Sandveil, but I felt like because Smooth Rock was banned, I want to maximize my Sand terms at Excadrill, as opposed to going to Garchomp and getting that small evasion boost, which can be nice, but it's kind of relying a lot on luck, and the Rough Skin makes it nice to punish things like U-turns or multi-attacks.
Although I have had a few encounters with Sandveil, and I've always missed. I've literally never hit a Garchomp with Sandveil before. That's annoying, but it's true.
True. I mean, it's super nice swapping into Draco Meteor, and it's just missing because it has like a lot less accuracy. So next up, we probably have the absolute crux of the team. We have Hippowdon, and this thing is so important to the team because it is our Sandstatter with Sandstream. So I used to use Eject Button on Sanaconda a lot, but I never really thought it'd be good on Hippowdon because it's so bulky, but Danny really sold me on Eject Button Hippowdon. So if you kind of want to explain briefly what it does.
Hippowdon, of course, is a bulky Pokemon. I run it with full HP, full defense with a defense boosting nature. So you can really take those physical attacks really nicely. In late game, in the case you are left with your Hippowdon against maybe a Scissor or something, it won't beat you. You will win this, trust me. I gave it Eject Button to make sure that the first hit that it gets, it switches directly safely into an Excadrill without having to predict a switch and risk being burned or KO'd with my Excadrill. So the Eject Button will just guarantee a safe switch in, which is really nice because then you can start sweeping.
Yeah, So as Danny rightfully pointed out there, it's just such a good pivot option to Excadrill. So you don't want to have to go into Hippo down and then hard swap into Excadrill because you run the risk of being burned, you run the risk of being KO'd. There's so much that can go wrong swapping into Excadrill. This just gives you one free turn swapping into Excadrill. So what the team loves to do is get Gravity on Landorus and then swap into Hippo, take the hit, go into Excadrill. Suddenly I think you have, was it 3 turns left of Gravity with Sand up, so...
It's almost always a 3-hit, just 3 Pokemon they have to sack off to even make it further into the match.
Exactly, so it just puts you at such a huge advantage in pure numbers with the Pokemon. Like, you're just going to take so many attacks because Excadrill is so strong. Moveset wise, we have Stealth Rock, which is good for breaking Sashes and Sturdies in the late game, especially because Excadrill just wants to get those KOs fast and quick, just doesn't want to worry about Sashes, it doesn't want to worry about Sturdy, it just wants to get the KO. And even doing like that 3% on like a Steel Pokemon is just so important just to break that Sturdy for Excadrill.
That's really important.
Yawn is just good to kind of, I suppose, when your Hippo down loses its eject button, it's nice to spread sleep or just kind of force Pokemon to swap out and take that bit of extra chip. They're taking Sand Chip, they're taking Rock Chip, so, it can just kind of put your opponent in an uncomfortable position. Next up, we have Slack Off. As Danny pointed out, this thing is just so bulky, especially in the face of physical attackers, so Slack Off is really good for longevity. And finally, we have Earthquake. I had Earthquake just because it's a strong stab. Unfortunately, the thing does get pretty badly walled out by flying types, which is why we have Yawn. But all in all, I think Hippowdon's main position on the team is to lay up Sand for Excadrill. It's not really a fighter. It's more of a kind of bulky pivot.
I do have it with Toxic, by the way, just for those flying types you mentioned earlier to really stall them out. And Slack, of course, for recovery for myself.
Yeah, so absolutely, you can run Toxic over Yawn or Toxic over Earthquake if that's what you're into. I just found Yawn somewhat handy for me, and I have Toxic on Gastrodon, so that's the reason I went for Yawn. But again, Toxic is completely legitimate. So next up we have Nidoking, and our Nidokings differ slightly. So I went for the tried and true Life Orb Nidoking just because I love the wall breaking ability. Moveset wise, I have Earth Power, a great stab, hits very strong. Sludge Wave is the same, it's very good for hitting fairies, it's good for hitting grass types, which can give the team trouble. I have Flamethrower for those pesky steel types like Ferrothorn, who can honestly really give the team trouble because it eats up Earthquakes pretty well. And finally, Ice Beam for dragons or the flying types in the tier. Now, I must say that Nidoking doesn't look impressive on paper, only 269 special attack is not much, but if you ever fought a Nidoking, Sheer Force and Life Orb boost this thing to be absolutely terrifyingly strong. And its speed is decent at 295, so I don't have much to say about Nidoking that people don't already know. So Danny, if you'd like to explain your Nidoking, because yours differs slightly from mine.
Yeah, I'm really a madman when it comes to Nidoking. My Nidoking has a scarf on it, which is really strange to hear, I believe, but it's something that works really well. You deal with if a lead Landorus, for example, like on flying or ground teams, they are often not scarfed. They don't expect Nidoking to be scarfed, so an Ice Beam from Nidoking on that is just AKO direct off the bat, which is really good to start it with. It does limit my options a lot, so I have Ice Beam, Earth Power, Sludge Wave, and T-Bolt. When I have to predict a lot with a Choice Scarf Nidoking, so if I T-Bolt onto a Gyarados and switch into Landorus, I have a problem. So that really comes to a lot of prediction, but I think that really fits with the ground team to really predict a lot ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So it fits. It's something that you have to do as a ground user with Excadrill and Landorus already, so it didn't come as a lot of extra burden. It does make it more difficult, especially end game when you have Nidoking left and you have a Scissor on one side and the other side is a Tornadus. You really need to choose what am I going to use right now. That makes it more difficult, but just shouldn't be waiting around with Nidoking till the end game.
Basically. Yes. So actually, Danny made a very good point there that I forgot to mention earlier. A lot of people think ground is a fairly, I want to say maybe aggressive or just like I click buttons type, but I think ground is a very technical type. It does take a lot of good reads, it takes a lot of setup and just very good game sense to play. I'm not trying to like diss on Dragon or Rain or anything, but there are more types that are aggressive. You can just kind of click strong buttons and put a lot of pressure on your opponent. That's not a bad thing. Different types have different playstyles, that's completely legitimate. But I feel like ground is that kind of high pressure, high velocity, aggressive type, but also very technical at the same time. You have to understand why you're clicking your buttons and when to click the buttons, because there's so much that can go wrong and make ground crumble.
It does, and the thing with Rain is and Snow Hail is the same. Like a lot of Ninetales can set up Hail and attack at the same time. really hard with Blizzard. Same goes for fire moves, especially in 10-7 when Charizard Y could set up Sun and use Flamethrower at the same time. So the sweeper, the attacker, is the same as the weather setter. And in ground, that's not the case. Hippowdon sets the weather, and then you have to switch out because Hippowdon himself is not going to hit really hard. So you really need to think ahead. How am I going to play this? When I'm going to use my eject button? When am I going to set up sand instead of just setting up rain or hail and go with it?
Yeah, great points. And just on that note, if you're kind of curious about my thoughts on the types, I did upload a tier list of the best types for beginners a couple of weeks ago, so you should definitely check that out. You'll notice I have ground fairly low, and that again is not a viability. Ground is a super amazing type, as we'll find out today, but it is tough to play, so don't let that turn you off playing ground. If you're like, oh, I'm kind of scared to play ground, just kind of watch the video, maybe get a feel for how it's done, because it's so rewarding when you learn to play ground.
When you win with ground, it's really rewarding as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so the final member on my team is Gastrodon. I know you use Seismitoad, but I'm going to explain why I use Gastrodon, and then you can explain why you use Seismitoad. So I like Gastrodon because it's just such a specially defensive tank. I mean, 82 special defense doesn't look hugely impressive on paper, but it's sporting a hefty 426 HP. And this is on top of Recover, so its longevity is really good. While special defense isn't bad, like that's not a bad special defense stat. It has leftover recovery, which is super nice, and what makes Gastrodon absolutely key to me on this team is its ability Storm Drain. So Storm Drain allows it to eat eat any water attack and increase its special attack. Now, while I think Water Absorb is nicer to give it HP back, the Storm Drain is pretty good too, because it makes its Scald a bit more threatening. It has 220 special attack uninvested, which honestly isn't bad. That's pretty good for absolutely no investment. It lets my Scald hit harder. Scald also can spread Burn, which patches up its only okay defense. And on top of that, it makes the team even bulkier. So if I burn a physical attacker, they're going to have a seriously hard time breaking through things like Hippowdon, Landorus, and to an extent Garchomp. We have Toxic to spread kind of passive damage on Pokemon that Scald won't really damage. I have that because my Hippowdon is Yawn. And finally I have Mirror Coat, which is really good, as we'll see later on in the game for me. Because I can like mirror coat things like a Draco Meteor back, or maybe they have a Specs Pokemon in and I swap in, like, you know, I sack a low HP Nidoking, for example, and I take in Gastrodon, and they think, oh, okay, I need to weaken this Gastrodon for later in the game, and they drop a Draco Meteor in my face, and suddenly it does 60% to me, and I mirror coat that back and they instantly faint. Suddenly I have a Gastrodon, I can recover back again later in the game because it's so specially defensive. It took care of like a really key kind of like specs threat on the team, because my team overall is definitely more physically defensive than specially defensive, which is why personally I like Gastrodon. Now I'm going to pass you over to Danny, who's going to explain his case for Seismitoad.
Seismitoad is different, of course. Seismitoad hits harder than Gastrodon does, but it's also a bit frailer. My Seismitoad has Earth Power, Grass Knot, Scald, and Sludge Wave. Earth Power, self-explanatory. Grass Knot is really for Gastrodon, and not so much with other Seismitoads, Swamperts, all those kind of water ground types you face when you deal with other ground teams, and sometimes a water team as well, because Swampert in the rain is extremely difficult to match up against, because it usually has Ice Punch, so it takes down my Landorus in one hit. A Earthquake doesn't defeat Seismitoad in one hit, so Grass Knot is just really nice to take care of a sweeper early on. Scald, well, that's just really nice to have to burn opponents, to really hit that with different kind of stab. And Sludge Wave is unexpected type of Booloos, because it happened a lot. When I start off with Seismitoad, they start off with Booloo, and instead of directly killing me, they think I'm going to switch out, so they set up with Bulk Up or something, and Sludge Wave just instantly KOs them, and they're thrown off the game that much that they almost directly lose. It happened 3 times, and I won all 3 games because they lost Tapu Bulu early on. So that's just for a nice little bit of surprise. I run it with Life Up, Water Absorb, so I can switch into all those kind of water types and just defeat them easily, because they can't hit me with Stab, and I can hit them with Stab. I used to have Hidden Power Electric on this back in 10-7, which really gave me the advantage against water teams, rain teams in special, because they started with Pelipper and then switched to Swampert. I would HP Electric kill Pelipper, then they switch into Swampert in panic because the range setter is gone, and then Krasner kills the Swampert and they usually forfeit. So that's how it went a lot.
So that's a great case for Seismitoad. So I guess to boil it down between Seismitoad and Gastrodon, if you like a more defensive, passive Pokemon, go Gastrodon. If you like a more prediction-heavy, offensive threat, go for Seismitoad. Both are great options. It's completely up to choice. I prefer Gastrodon personally, but clearly Danny prefers Seismitoad, and you know they're both completely legitimate options. So,
I've even seen Swampert work well, so Swampert is also an option if you want to go that route.
Absolutely. So that's going to be it from the team preview. Unfortunately, Danny does not join me in the actual games, but a huge thank you for coming on today, and definitely check out his channel.
If I can say one more thing, if it's allowed.
Yep.
For Excadrill, I used to have it Weapon Spin. I gave it Access, and that's really nice because the biggest threat right now for ground teams is Willyboom. Willyboom in grassy terrain with Grassy Slide, that would just wreck you completely. So that's really nice because Access with an Excadrill will most likely do either a lot or just KO it. It's really useful to really survive a Willyboom attack. Although, if you have to ask me, what do I do when I face grass? I would say forfeit. But if you want to go up against it, Access might help you out.
So there's some wisdom from the Grandmaster himself. So again, thank you so much, Danny, for joining me today.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to pause there and find some games, and we'll be right back. So we have our first game against Mono Fire, which is a pretty nice way to start, though it's not a complete victory. Like, they do have things like Charizard, they probably have Air Balloon on Heatran, which kind of can be scary for me, as well as that if they are Giga Drain on Volcarona, it is definitely a threat to my team. So I think they'll probably open up Torkoal, so I'm going to open up Neoking here, threaten with an Earth Power, as they actually open Blacephalon. Now my best specially defensive Mon is Gastrodon. Unless this is Specs, I think I live a hit, so I'm going to go ahead here and click Earth Power. Oh, they Psychic, so I absolutely don't live a hit. Good play. I'll take a Gastrodon, and I think I'll just Toxic whatever's coming in. So losing my Nidoking turn 1 to a Psychic is a big fault on my part. I completely forgot this can run Psychic. Part of me wants to click Mirror Coat, but I don't... I'll Toxic. As they swap into Heatran, great play. They probably want to Toxic me here, so... I guess I'll just Scald to break their Balloon. It helps a lot against Excadrill later in the game. And they probably protect here, so I'm going to go into Chompers as they go into Cinderace. I'll still Earthquake. A high jump kick shouldn't kill me. If they go into Charizard, good play. But I don't think Charizard can win a KO Garchomp, so I can always Stone Edge it if it comes in. So I value damage off in Cinderace a lot, I feel. Because I want to go for an Excadrill endgame. If I can get the gravity down, especially to take care of Charizard, that would be great for me. So Volcarona is still a threat, as is Blacephalon, so I definitely want to keep my Gastrodon healthy. Though it should be outsped by Sand Rush Excadrill, which is nice. Honestly, Torkoal can be a bit of an issue for me as well. It's great defense, on top of the fact I lost my Nidoking turn 1. So I should have gone into my Gastrodon turn 1 on the Blacephalon, but I didn't. Is that banded? That is so strong. So they give me Heatran, which makes sense because they lost their Air Balloon. It's pretty much useless in this game after Toxicing my Gastrodon. Does Blacephalon get Learn Set? Is that what is Learn Set? Will that pick up my... No, it... Okay. I guess I Stone Edge here. They are Sash. Interesting. Are they Giga Drain? So I feel like going to Hippo down. If they're not Giga Drain, they die to the sand. If they are, it lets me get in my Excadrill anyway. And start clicking Rock Slide. So they're Buzz. Which means I get in my Excadrill here, and they die to Sand Chip. Pretty good turn for me as I keep my Hippo down alive to get Sand up again against something maybe like Blacephalon. They go to Torkoal to get at their Sun. Great play. I will go into... I think Garchomp here is probably the most expendable member. As they go into Charizard. They are Solar Power now. Are they Scarf? Let's find out. I think they'll have to... What, Air Slash KO? I don't think Dragon Pulse KOs Malandorus, so they can't Choice Lock themselves into that. I don't think Flamethrower kills Garchomp. So this is actually a decent position for me, I feel. Okay, so now I get rid of their Charizard, which means my Earthquakes are much more free in the endgame. I do have to be somewhat wary of Cinderace, as it's quite strong. GG. I guess I'll sack Garchomp to a Shadow Ball. I'll take in Gastrodon here and click Mirror Coat, just in case they want to stay in. Nice. So I got rid of Blacephalon, which is great for my team. And I feel like my Excadrill just cleans up in the late game. I don't think Banded Sucker Punch KOs, because Excadrill just has so much health. I'll just Toxic here. As far as I know, that's Banded, because that did like 40-something% to Excadrill, which seems like really strong. So they go for Pyro Ball. I'll go into Lando here and just click Earthquake. Pyro Ball shouldn't KO unless it's a crit. That does a lot of damage. So that game was closer than I actually anticipated. Losing Nidoking turn 1 was pretty bad, but I still managed to pull through pretty nicely. GG. So we're going to pause there till we find the next game. I'll be right back. So we have a game against not only water, but it's a rain team, so this is going to be really hard for me. Gastrodon is obviously my most important member here. I'm going to open up with Nidoking, in case they want to open up Feeny, as they open up Pelipper. Are they Choice Scarf? I think I have to Sludge Wave, assuming they're not Choice Scarf, as they go into Toad. Now, what's even worse here is I'm going to stay in Earth Power, expecting to Grass Knot or maybe Power Whip, as they go into Lapras. Interesting. That does a lot of damage, and I can just Sludge Wave again. So my Gastrodon is super important, and they probably wanted to try and Freeze Dry me here. I think I Sludge Wave again, in case Pelipper comes out, and if Seismitoad comes out, I get a bit of chip, which is nice. And maybe Excadrill can do a lot of work in the endgame with its Banded Earthquakes. So we get rid of Lapras, which is probably the biggest threat to my Gastrodon. Now Toad comes out. I can't risk losing Gastrodon. I think Hippo lives one, unless it's Specs. Nice. Which lets me get an Excadrill here. I want to click Earthquake to kill Seismitoad. Did they go into Pelipper? I feel like Seismitoad's a bigger threat to me. I'll click Earthquake as they go into Pelipper. Good play. So here, I think I go into Gastrodon. No, the U-turn. For sure. I think Lando's expendable. As I can burn away some of their rain turns. As I said, Gastrodon is so important to me in this game. To keep as healthy as possible. The fact Toad is Life Orb is good for me. It puts it on a timer. If I can play around it with the likes of Gastrodon and Nidoking, I should be able to do pretty well. They go into Kingdra. I think Gastrodon lives. It's so especially defensive. That did a lot of damage. I need to recover this turn. As they go into Feeny. I think they're going to trick me, so I'll go into Nidoking. As they Calm Mind, I'll Sludge Wave. I outspeed as well, which is really good for me. Unfortunately, they do take care of my Nidoking. But I can get in Garchomp. And I'll click... Do I click Stone Edge here on the Pelipper? I'll have to click Earthquake just in case. And Stone Edge here. That is very physically defensive. But they're fairly low, so I can KO them next time they come out with Stone Edge. As Kingdra comes back in. I feel like always going to Gastrodon here. As I live pretty convincingly. A part of me wants to Mirror Coat. I'm going to Mirror Coat. They go into Vish. They might outrage here. I don't think they should Vicious. And Lando should live one. That is quite strong. But now I can get an Exca. It's not very effective. Oh my, that did so much damage. That crit really, really, really hurts. I'll Rock Slide. Come on. Okay, they confused themselves. That's quite good for me. So I got rid of Vish, which is pretty good. Kingdra, I can... Can I go into... You? 34%? Yeah, I can. Unless they get a crit or high rolls, I should live. Of course they get a crit. That really, really sucks for me. That's so bad for me. I think I just straight up lose now because of that crit. Unless maybe I can set up in Pelipper's face, or recover in Pelipper's face. Ah. I think I sack Lando. And get in Garchomp. And just click Scale Shot and pray for 5 hits. They can go to Feeny. I do outspeed it, so it should be fine. I'll just Earthquake. That crit on Gastrodon hurts so much. Now maybe I should have played safe and pivoted in through my... What? That didn't KO? That's bulky. So... I have to Earthquake again. Or do I SD? I don't think I outspeed Kingdra if I SD into Scale Shot. I'll Earthquake again. Feeny is quite annoying for my team. So the end game isn't impossible. I think I have to rely on Scale Shot getting a lot of hits. I'll Stone Edge, but they probably swap here. They shouldn't U-turn. They should hard swap. But I can't risk... Yeah, I knew that was coming. It was just a bad play on my part. So they probably kill with Earth Power. Nope, they don't. Because Gastrodon is just so ridiculously bulky. Man, can this guy please stop creating me? They end up forfeiting, so we're going to pause there till we find our next one after that good game. We'll be right back. So we have a game here against Monotype. Thankfully they're not running Slow Bro, who's a huge threat to my team. Slow King is definitely slightly easier for me to deal with. That said, Latias can still be a pain. Oh, they do have Slow Bro, he's right there. Didn't see him obscured next to Latias. So Slow Bro is actually very dangerous for my team. So that's going to be a bit annoying. And with this, I think I'll open up a Garchomp, as I expect them to open up Jirachi. Now, if they are Starf, it can be annoying. I'm going to Scale Shot into, I thought might be Latias coming in, but they stay in and go to Slowbro. That did okay damage, and I'm going to Sword Dance in their face. Please don't burn. Nice. So Earthquake is pretty threatening right now. Oh, the crit is super big for me. That's actually huge. That's Choice Scarf. 100%. So I go into Gastrodon here. On the Draco. And I want to Toxic, but they might take on Hatterene, so I'm actually going to go ahead and go back into my Garchomp here. On Jirachi and click Earthquake again. Well, that's quite bulky to live that. They get the Paralysis, unfortunately, but that makes sense. They are Serene Grace, so I'm okay with that. They do die if they make contact with me again, so I'm going to go ahead and click Scale Shot. Just in case Latias wanted to come in. I'll Earthquake here, as Hatterene might come in. Oh, good play, actually. Very good play. So they get rid of my Chomp, but here I get a free knockoff, which should do a decent chunk of damage to anything. And they give me Jirachi. I'm okay with that. I think I'll knock again. As expected, V-Crate shouldn't KO. Landorus is quite bulky. I'm going to go into Gastrodon because I should live a Draco Meteor after the first one because the first one should drop special attack. And I can just recover in this thing's face. Hat comes in, and Hat is very scary for me. I think Nido's most expendable member here, and I can click Sludge Wave. As they Mystical Fire. Great play. I'm okay, honestly, losing Nido in this position, because it lets me get a Hippo down. Sorry, Excadrill, I just click Iron Head. Which in this position is extremely strong. Now what I'm going to do is go into Hippo down, activate my eject button to get my sand up, and go back into Excadrill. Which I think should win me the game. I don't see Slowking living this. It's Banded Adamant. It's so strong. Oh, it actually lives. Thankfully, I lived the Flamethrower. It didn't burn. And yeah, that's GG. So we're going to pause there till we find the next one. I'll be right back. So we have a game against another Mono Ground player. So this one, our teams are looking quite similar, but they're running a Crocodile instead of Landorus, which is pretty good because Crocodile's a really good Pokemon. So in this game, I definitely value Gastrodon a lot. I value Nidoking. Excadrill is kind of scary, but I think I have a nice check in Landorus. So as usual, I open up a Chomp here, just because Chomp is so good. As they open up Nidoking. I can't afford for this thing to be Choice Scarfed and KO my Chomp, so I'm going to scout by going to Gastrodon. Okay, the fact they didn't stay in, to me, says they're not Choice Scarfed. Now, I think Hippo is going to try Toxic me, so I can go to my own Nidoking here. And they Earthquake. I don't think Ice Beam KOs because it's not plus special attack. I'll try getting Garchomp on the Earthquake as they go into Gastrodon themselves. I'll try Swords Dance in their face. If they Toxic me, that's okay. Scald Burn is definitely the worst they could do to me. That's fair. I was playing a bit greedy, but even still, Earthquake does a decent chunk here. Well, that does nothing to need to Hippo. Damn, that Scald Burn really hurts me. I'll SD again. As this starts to threaten them a decent bit more. Do I SD again? No, because I probably Whirlwind. I'll just click Earthquake. Nice, so this should, if not get me a KO, do a lot of damage to someone on the team. Now, every part of me wanted to click Scale Shot there, but Scale Shot is famously unreliable. So I think it was a terrible play. They're taking Crook. I'll go into Lando. They knock me off, which is okay with me. As here, I think I just get an Earthquake. They're probably Choice Scarfed on Crook, which makes sense that they're not Choice Scarfed on Nidoking. And the Earthquake here should do a decent bit of damage to anything swapping in. I think Garchomp is probably the thing I'm most worried about. Because it'll easily live my Earthquake. Nidoking and Excadrill die, and I think Gastrodon dies to 2 Earthquakes, because this is Max Attack Adamant, which is very strong. That is so strong. I don't think this can KO me. Oh, Draco. That's really interesting. Huh. That's quite scary for my team, actually. So I'm going to go into Chomp here. I think I have to hope I outspeed. As they go into Crook. I mean, a bit of chip on Crook is okay with me. Actually, they're going to knock off. So I think I'm going to Hippo. Which easily lives. And I'm going to click Earthquake here. As again, it does a ton of damage. So they get rid of X-Scale, which is pretty good for me, because X-Scale is kind of scary. It's the only thing that can outspeed my own Excadrill. And that makes my Sandrush Banded Earthquakes pretty free in the end game. So on Nidoking, I always go into Gastrodon. It should eat it. That does very little. And I can Toxic, as they'll probably take in their own Gastrodon. If they stay in, great play. They do indeed go into their own Gastrodon, and this lets me sack my Garchomp. I don't think I need Chomp in the endgame very much. And I need to keep Gastrodon healthy for Nidoking just in case. So I'm taking Hippo here. What do I sack? I think I sack Nidoking because I think Excadrill is my win condition. Yep, that's okay. Do damage to me. I want to put it in a position where Excadrill can come out for free. While the sand is still up. So they're probably going to Crook here. I'll give them my Nidoking. As it lets me take an Excadrill. I'm pretty sure Adamant Banded Earthquake kills 77%. It's so strong. And that should put me in a position where Hippowdon can set the sand up again in 2 turns. I take an Excadrill and click Earthquake again. Assuming this KOs. Which I think it does. I probably should have calculated that. So they give me Gastrodon, which is really good. And they... This isn't Sash, is it? They give me Nidoking as well. Nice. So as I said, this puts me in the position where I can take a Hippowdon. I don't even know if I have to sack it. I'll slack off. Into a yawn. That's a bad play. GG. They could crit me. Now the worst thing that could possibly happen is they crit me. My sand goes down and I lose to Choice Scarf Earthquake. So I think I yawn here. I'm not allowed to let that happen. As they end up forfeiting anyway. So I'm going to try and find another game, but because I'm so high on the ladder, this game took me about a good almost 10 minutes to find, probably. And it is quite early in the morning as well, so it's taking a long time. So hopefully we'll find another one. If not, I will dig up a good replay somewhere and show you that instead. So we'll be right back. So we have another game against Mono Fighting. So this can be kind of threatening because Keldeo is quite scary for my team. Honestly, Conkeldurr is too. I think I open up with the tried and true Garchomp as they open up Terrakion. They might be a rock lead. So I'll just go ahead and Earthquake here. Are they Sash? They are Sash, which is good for me because if they try and touch me now, they die to my Rough Skin. So I'll click Scale Shot in case they want to swap out. And the reason for that is so I can outspeed things like Choice Scarf or Urshifu. Keldeo is definitely a threat to my team, which is why I need to keep Gastrodon healthy. They could Sucker Punch as well, Earthquake. This is a huge threat to my team, so it being weakened is quite good for me. They CC. Are they Choice Scarf? I will Scale Shot in case they are, as I expected Hawlucha to come out. Come on, 3 hits at least. That's so good for me if I can hit them again. So honestly, Chomp is putting in work right now. Now, if this is Ice Punch, it's so threatening to my team. They definitely Mach Punch here, so I'm going to go into Lando. Which takes very little. And I'm going to go ahead and click Earthquake. Unfortunately, it doesn't KO, but we do live because Lando is so bulky. And I'm going to click Gravity this turn. Now, the reason I'm clicking Gravity is because Hawlucha might come in, and the Gravity will make it weak to ground, and there's no point KOing because it dies with Burn anyway. And this puts me in a great position where I can just click Banded Earthquake. They're taking Keldeo. I'm going to go into Hippo to pivot the sand. I might live if they're not Specs. Okay, they're Specs. But like, let's be getting X here and click Earthquake here. And I'm almost certain this KOs. As I said, it's Banded Adamant. Hopefully I didn't just throw the game. Because that's the end of my sand. I at least get another KO, which is pretty good for me. Though it's looking kind of scary. You shouldn't give me Hawlucha, I feel. Okay. I get another KO then. So the gravity ended, so they should have swapped out and let a Lucha live one. And since this is most likely Specs, it can't click Scald because Gastrodon lives. Is that Specs? It looks like it. I click Mirror Coat. Over and over. They're on a timer, in case they want to swap into like Secret Sword or something, but it looks like they're Specs. So I think that's GG. Yep, that's GG. So I think that is going to be it from the live today. Definitely a shorter one than usual, I feel. It's just that the games take so long for me to find right now at the position I'm in the ladder. So that is it from me today. We went for a few less games than I typically get on a Showdown Live. I thought I'd go for quality over quantity today. I think the games I got were pretty decent. I think I played well, and I think I showed off the ground type very well. So a quick shout out again to Danny for helping me with this team. I think it did fantastic, and I'm really happy to be able to build teams with him. And if you kind of like the format of me talking with someone, maybe like someone who's really specifically good at that type in the team preview and building teams together, let me know down below, because I'm happy to collaborate with other Monotype players to kind of build teams together. Now, my final thoughts on ground type. I think it's a pretty decent type, though it is extremely technical to play, and it can be kind of hard to build a ground team because sometimes kind of like any Monotype, but I feel ground really has struggles with the issue that sometimes you kind of just have to accept the fact there are some Pokemon that you're going to struggle a lot with. For example, Freeze Dry Pokemon, there's very little ground types can do about Freeze Dry. It just really, really hurts the team. As well as that, things like Rillaboom with Grassy Glide really hurt the team, and there's very few ways the team can realistically deal with that without having to sacrifice a huge amount against other matchups. So that is an unfortunate kind of side effect. I think every type does suffer that, but maybe ground a bit more than others. But with that said, I definitely think it's a really good type, especially if you're confident in your ability to read and kind of play a few turns ahead. It's a very rewarding type. So with that, if you did enjoy, I really appreciate leaving a like, comment, subscribing if you enjoy my kind of content, checking out my videos, all that kind of stuff helps me out so much, and it really, really is appreciated. And with that, I hope you have a fantastic day. Take care.